Welcome back to the show. Today we are talking Web3 sales, and I felt like there's nobody better to talk to sales about than Sean. Sean, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I could talk sales all day. So let's get after it.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Well, first of all, I just want to, talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been able to accomplish in Web3. I know you've got 2+ years experience, being a solo entrepreneur now, and you're recently hired your first team and consistently serving 4 to 6 clients within lead gen, cold calling, and sales 0 to 6 figures in revenue. I mean, these are just like some of the tidbits that I picked up on. But overall, you've been very successful in your sales career and within your business, working with some of the more reputable ecosystems and projects. How has that experience been like for you?
It's been a roller coaster. I think before we started recording this, I was talking about how tired I am. So it's pretty consistent in any sales career, right? But it's been amazing because yeah, like I said, I just brought on my first hire. We're actually training two more guys to join the second half of this year. Yeah, it's been a very cool place to grow, and I find that doing it in Web3 really is that kind of blue ocean that all salespeople kind of look for to attack and not have a lot of competition, provide a great service, and you're going to grow quickly. So that's what we have found in the last 2+ years. I have much more sales experience outside of Web3 that I'm sure we can dig into, but yeah, happy to share some of the secrets about how we made it happen.
Yeah, let's dive right into it, and then of course I'm going to touch on like some of your background as well. But if I'm an early stage project, nobody really knows about me. I just launched, completed development. Now I need to get out there. I need to form partnerships. I need to figure out ways to increase my user acquisition. What are some of the ways that I can get out there and start allowing people to know who I am, essentially?
Yeah, yeah, that's the name of the game, right? I think when I first came in, I was just like a fanboy, loved Bitcoin, loved dipping into the cosmos, and was just finding my place as a fan where I wanted to hang out and learn. I found that was a kind of like a second afterthought, right? Everyone was really heavy on let's build product, let's develop, and they kind of forget, hey, when you're this young, users are everything, right? They're your lifeline, they're your revenue, they're your reputation, and if you aren't putting effort into that, you're just handicapping yourself and shortening your runway. So that's where I thought, okay, well, this is my experience outside of Web3. I can build something and offer it here. And one of the first things I suggest to any of my clients or anybody looking for help is keep it real simple, right? Like find your small hub in your community that already loves you and use them quickly, right? They're going to give you a ton of feedback. They're going to rate you. They're going to try new products for you. And from there, you can then start expanding. But don't be afraid to tap into that first community, right? The people that love you from day one, and then ask them for referrals or start your own pipeline, which is obviously what my team does. And it's really simple. The space is so new that people are hungry for that. Yeah, let me check out that new product, or sure, let me give you a review and see what your application looks like. So a lot of it is just getting out there, create a lead list and go hit it, or find somebody like me to do it for you.
So you're coming from a traditional sales background, Web 2. When you first broke into this industry, like what did you like right off the bat see that, hey, like there's like a big missing piece here and I feel like I could fix it?
I think it was I had joined the Secret Network Ambassador Program, and that was like just mind blowing. It was you got to touch so many different parts. It opened up a lot of doors, and that's when I first realized like, wow, there isn't many places that I've hung out that have this like really fine tuned sales funnel. And I know everybody kind of like hates that word, right? We all like to build here, and we're new. Sales funnel is not sexy, and not a lot of people want to go do that, get rejected a ton of times, right? So I found like that was the first time, because that was my first time really getting deep into a network through the ambassador program, and I'll always be grateful for them going with a lot of my first sales funnels that I built. But that's what really showed like, oh my gosh, you can really, with a light lift, get a lot of users onto a new platform. One of the examples on Secret Network was their Secret University online Rust program, where you can just take online Rust training. And these guys, incredible devs, had built this awesome course, but there was no funnel to really capture everything that the network was doing and taking devs to show them this resource. And I think in like our first semester, we ended up getting like 200 devs to sign up and start taking their first course. Um, yeah, and I think that that was the first time that it really clicked to me like, wow, this can be used in a lot of places because many projects are just very early, right? Secured their first funding, and yeah, this is gonna do a massive amount of work for them.
I'm a big advocate for building relationships. But to your point, I think having a very organized, structured sales funnel is the key to success to any organization if they're going to scale. So when you think about a sales funnel, like what does that usually entail?
Yeah, it's interesting because like out of the we always have like a rotating 4 to 6 clients, and each are almost like in a very different space than the other, right? You've got an NFT client, a DeFi client, a layer one client. Um, and it will look different for everybody. I think that anybody that does that well will find out, okay, where's the large bucket and who are we trying to attract? From there, you'll break it down to maybe 2 or 3 personas, right? So like Secret University Rust training, that's pretty specific. We want people interested in learning Rust development, and we can build a sales funnel around that. I think the very first step anybody should take is to find where those people are hanging out. Like that Rust example was we actually built our funnel to contact blockchain university blockchain groups like San Diego State, University of Minnesota, Oregon. We contacted, I think we partnered with over 40 in the first semester that allowed us to show like, hey, why is privacy important? And that was our big funnel. Then it got us introduced to all these blockchain groups, got us introduced to the devs that were in that group, and then those devs ended up joining the program to learn Rust. And I think that that's kind of the first step. You got to find that big top of funnel and where those guys are hanging out.
Yeah, Web3 is just so interesting, especially if you're working for like a decentralized protocol and collaborating with other people that tend to be anonymous or very, privacy focused. In traditional sales, it's pretty simple. You pick up the phone, you dial, you cold call, you get somebody on the other line, you talk to them. Maybe it's a gatekeeper, right? If you're lucky, you have an email. But in Web3, everything is done in Telegram. Like there's no way to, automate a certain process internally. Like everything is just purely manual. I mean, unless you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like how do you navigate these waters? Because it's a completely different ball game. Like Web3 sales is a reason why I'm attaching the word Web3 to it, because it looks very different in Web3 versus the traditional world.
It does, and it sounds like you may have some similar experience to me outside of Web3, which was just that like smile and dial, right? You're just picking up the phone, getting rejected, and I think it's because that whole world is it's been around for a long time, right? Where it's kind of nice. It's a little bit of a luxury to be doing it in Web3 because it hasn't been around for a long time. So the people that you end up working with are very scrappy. They move fast. They make decisions fast, and if you can get results, then that's what speaks the loudest. So what I found are some really tactical things that I do are like organization is key. That will never go away. You have to live and die off of your calendar. So having really minimal steps to getting somebody from first conversation, where does that happen? Usually Telegram, like you said. Folders inside Telegram are going to save your life. So organize folders based on there. Make sure to drop that contact into the proper folder. Follow up with them immediately with your Calendly link, or TidyCal, and then get them on your calendar. Make sure that those are always like 1, 2 steps, right? You don't want to make people jump through a bunch of hoops, whether it's a potential client or one of your clients. You're bringing on a potential user for your client. You got to make it as easy as possible. Let them know why it's valuable, and then like 1 or 2 steps. I find that Telegram and folders, and then a Calendly link to get them on your calendar is like that's the whole bread and butter of your own business, but also of your servicing your clients.
Yeah, folders are definitely key. For me, whenever I go to different conferences that are specifically like Web3 focused, like I would name a folder that specific conference. And so anybody that I meet at that conference, I will add them to that folder just to keep it organized. Always take a selfie and always leave the information, because when you go back and you look at it, you're wondering like, who is this person? Because everything is just so hectic when you're at a conference.
Oh yeah, the overwhelming Telegram. I think anybody in the Web3 space is definitely knows how that feels.
Absolutely. So going back to my example, like I'm a very early stage bootstrapped project. I'm trying to launch my business development off the ground here, trying to get some initial revenue, maybe pick up some steam so I can gain some, I don't know, VC traction. How do I do this in a way that doesn't come off desperate? If I'm doing a cold outreach, for instance, like how do I try to connect with somebody in a less invasive way where people don't really sense like a level of desperation?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the big piece that a lot of the early projects don't hit just right. The it's going to be one of the like the hardest things that you'll do because it is so early that um it's going to be very manual, right? Like you're going to have to show that you actually care, and then you're going to have to practice your scripts. If the cold DM doesn't go out, or the cold comment or Telegram, Twitter, anything, and it doesn't go out and sound like another human's on that side, that you actually care if that person took the time, and that you don't word it like, A/B test a few scripts that make it sound really short, really sweet, preferably like a list of why it's valuable to that other person for them to read these, 2, 3 sentences. um, that's like crucial because everybody's overwhelmed with DMs, and you don't need to capture like a huge amount. There's, what my team uses a couple AI tools to be able to send out like hundreds per day to a customized lead list. Um, and that way you can test those A/B scripts. But each one of those has to sound really personal. It has to sound like Sean is on that other line. It has to sound like I care about the NFT marketplace that I'm trying to show them, and why it's valuable to them in a very short, succinct script. I think a lot of early projects, they say, I'm bootstrapped. I've been putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this. I'm going to kind of vomit a whole bunch of why this product's great. And you just don't want to do that. You want to save that for further down in the onboarding.
You mentioned like AI and automation, and this helps scale. Personally, I feel like it takes a little bit away from the relationship aspect. But for any business, like it's extremely important in the very beginning, right? And then once you establish that connection with them, then you have the opportunity to really like dive deeper and build that relationship. But almost feel like it's kind of like in the dating world, right? In the very beginning, you almost have to play this little game until you get enough of the attention, and then once you do, they can, once you're noticed, you can then focus on like building that relationship. But at first you almost have to figure out a way to really stand out.
Yeah, that's so true. The dating example is like so spot accurate. Yeah, I would say some of the guys that I admire on my team that do it well, they'll bring in like, a very personalized sounding script. One of them is from like spent a lot of time in Australia, and so he'll say like "Good day, mate," right? And it catches you off guard because what scammer DMs you starting off as "Good day, mate," right? Just doesn't happen. They're gonna give you a bunch of trash. So it's a really dumb example, but that's the kind of stuff that you need to think on, and then like you said, to build that relationship because they need to know that you're human, you actually care about them and their time, and that what you built is valuable for them to take that 5 minutes. So yeah, it is a process, and it's like you got to break that ice. But even if you manually send out 100 personal ones and you got a 5-10% conversion, that's 10 people that are willing to give you feedback, look at your platform or whatever you're asking them to do, which is going to be invaluable. I think a lot of projects that I've seen over the years, they just wait way too long to do that, and now they're trying to play catch up, and they're out of runway. So anybody that is in that bootstrapping example you're talking about, do this alongside. It's almost like that pre-sale, right? Like sign up or pre-sale, or start collecting it, or the second you have an MVP on your first product, start the process of trying to get 100 cold DMs out and 10 people to reply.
So when you send out your DM, like what are some things that are very essential to have in the body of the message that you're sending?
Yeah, like right off the bat, right? The first one's got to be that you respect their time, that you're really quick though, right? That you're human, you respect their time. Show that you actually did research on them. And this is what makes it so manual. It'll take a long time, but you need to see like, okay, what does that person do? Like, before we're chatting, I'm going to look at a few of the YouTube videos that you've done and what were the previous ones? How do you style them? I might comment on a few of them in a tweet so that, I look familiar. And then that way, when I send you a DM that says, hey, you know, your last video with Isaiah on partnerships was eye-opening. I do sales. We can, and then you put in your value. We can contact 1,000 leads for you. Is this worth your time? That may be something really, really short and succinct one, but you got to show that you're human, what's in the value for them, and then that you did your homework, right? You're not just a real cold DM. That's like you don't want to feel like that.
To your point, I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn, and they definitely did their research because they hit me up and they were like, "Hey, really excited about this channel you're launching. You have a new subscriber. Really like the videos on X, Y, and Z." And I was like, "Wow, okay, this is a refreshing." And then he went into like his like sales pitch, which totally full respect for his approach. So I gave him my time. But you're absolutely right. Like that's a very authentic approach, rather than if you're reading a message and clearly, you could tell like the other person didn't do any kind of research and it doesn't really speak to you. And that's really the most important aspect of it.
You bring up a good point too. There's kind of that back end, right? Where if they did the research and you enjoyed that guy's initial outreach where you're willing to take a couple minutes to read and reply, um, it's got to make sure that that follow up isn't like you're real thirsty or that you idolize that person, right? It's got to be a good follow up where something like say a graphic or a video, right? Visuals are always going to be easier, and then you haven't like tainted the good first outreach that you did by ruining it with a second. So that's just hearing what you said there. It's I'm glad that the guy did very well in his initial outreach, and it reminded me the second that you follow up with that, if you like go right into like a hard sales pitch, it kind of gives you that like dirty cringe feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Sean, what are your thoughts on, say, a message versus, say, a voice message, or perhaps like a Loom video? Have you ever played around with any of those, or are you strictly a text person?
No, yeah, I am a fan of Loom in certain situations. I think finding the right tool depending on your client and who that audience is, and then also what value you need to convey to that end user based on what your product can do. I think Loom's a great resource. It's short, it's sweet, um, but in certain scenarios, I find that it's got to be the right clientele, like somebody that isn't going to be thrown off by like seeing my face on a video on a very initial outreach, or um, seeing a voice note can kind of feel invasive on a first outreach. So sometimes I'll save one of those for second or third. Almost always on the first outreach, you just want to get their buy-in that hey, this is worth their time. So in that initial outreach, when you put in the value, is that worth their time? If they come back and say yes, then a Loom video or a voice note may be a good option. But I usually don't recommend it on the first outreach.
Many of the textbooks that I read talk about you want to state the problem, like, hey, a lot of my clients are facing with this issue. Is that like, are you in the same boat? So kind of like leading with the actual problem and then asking them like, does this resonate with you in a way? So yeah, I do agree that especially in the very beginning, a text can get that message across a lot quicker versus having somebody to listen in to a 1 minute message to get to the actual point of why you're reaching out. So it's a good point on that.
One of the best ones that's been working for us recently is if you can provide some kind of graphic too, right? It's visual, so it doesn't look it gives them something more succinct and visually appealing than having to read. So graphics have been a good one too. Um, you reminded me of a new one, and now it's slipping me. So hopefully I'll remember it before we end here. But maybe it's too secret. I shouldn't share it. We'll see.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, to your point, the graphic, I do think that there's a place for it. I remember when I was first like breaking into the security world, and I was doing a lot of outreach. I noticed that there was a difference in the response rate when I had my message without a picture, and then one where I had a picture of myself. It almost just humanizes it a little bit, especially in crypto, right? Because a lot of times you don't really know who the other person is. So in that particular scenario, I felt like I got a better response rate in the email by having a picture of myself and had like a little logo of like the company name. That really helped out.
That's a really good one. I'm gonna start stealing that. Thank you. I used to
There you
do it a
go.
lot in outside of Web3. I used to sell solar panels. I'd be inside four strangers' homes a day for like 6 days a week at their kitchen table. So yeah, talk about like really getting rejected was a lot more personal, right? But that was always a really good one was the send like a photo of yourself because obviously I'm going to show up at their front door, so it's a little bit different in the Web3 space. But you like text a photo as like a reminder, hey, I'll see you in 30 minutes for our call. You could do something similar, right, on any of my like Twitter cold DMs. I'll always send out that reminder, like, hey, we'll see you on the call in 10 minutes. And then maybe provide a link or something of so they can verify and they can see who to expect on the other side. It's usually not a picture of myself. It's like my PFP or something, but makes them aware, and it's a good reminder to have them actually show up to the call because yeah, that's you don't want to put all that effort in for them to not be there.
There's a culture in the crypto community, right? Especially on Twitter, that you don't have your personal picture. You have like some NFT, for instance, that you own, or like in your particular case, like PFP. Uh, do you feel like that resonates more in sales rather than like having a picture of yourself?
It's hard. I've learned the at least in the last 2 years, I've seen doxing yourself like completely if you're gonna take the sales route like I have helps tremendously. But I also find that you can build a really strong brand off of that PFP or picture that you use as your brand, right? So like I specifically chose a guy with glasses and in a suit because I wanted to build my brand as, hey, we're going to bring that kind of professionalism where it that's what's going to cultivate around the brand, right? If you see I'll always be on camera, I'll always show up early to a meeting, right? Like you're going to get that kind of professionalism and it fit well with the branding of my PFP. But I found that like on my LinkedIn and everything else, or any chance you talk with a client, yeah, if you can get FaceTime, that's always going to make people feel more comfortable in this digital space.
Yeah, I think as a salesperson, you need to understand the culture of the platform that you're using. So, like on LinkedIn, it's very much about like show your face, buttoned up, more professional. And then on NFT, I feel like people, I mean, on Twitter, people are having a little bit more fun, maybe posting their NFTs instead. And I think it's more about the personality and the community. And so, understanding how to connect with people on a platform really makes a big difference in terms of the sales process.
Yeah, absolutely does. It is amazing. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it seems like so much of the Web3 space is Twitter. Like you almost feel like you're always going to run out of leads. Like if you've contacted too many people on Twitter, and there's almost just still more Web3 people and leads on Twitter. So it's probably my biggest platform. But that always goes in the back of my head, like, oh man, am I going to run out of leads soon?
Yeah. Definitely. Do you feel like part of a sales process is also doing, you have like sales and then you have more of like business development, right? It's a little bit more of a long-term strategic approach. Maybe you're hosting some Twitter spaces to kind of create opportunities. Do you feel like every business should have that as part of their strategy?
Yeah, I try to think like I mentioned, we usually have 4 to 6 clients in different spaces. So they're usually early stage, like they secured their first or second round of funding, but they all seem to be like in a little bit different position to do things differently. And I think like that's what I'll try to determine is, hey, just does this need to be like a two-prong approach? Do we need to go lead gen, cold call, let's fill the funnel? And do we need to establish some kind of BD along with that? I think it's dependent on each client. What I find is you can't survive without that lead list and cold calling. That's almost like a non-negotiable. Most in the early stage can kind of get away with BD because that will kind of act naturally, right? People are going to come up for partnerships. Your founder should be doing natural BD, right? Twitter Spaces and stuff. So it's almost where they're all lacking is not that BD angle, but lacking in the let's go get users and get feedback from them. So yeah, I think BD kind of goes more natural. I do break that down. Like we, at least at Melcher Capital, we do like 3 different packages, and BD will be in that third package. It's like you can just generate lead lists. That's one package for us. We'll give you a bunch of leads. We'll give you a lead list, and then we'll cold call. That's our middle package, and then we'll create the leads, cold call, close the sale, and continue the BD onboarding. So that's at least how we structure it. But I find that most clients, like their founder is going to be doing BD by natural, and they should already have one guy kind of facilitating that.
I had to give you a lot of props for the success that you've had because, especially when you're working with earlier stage startups, and maybe because you're not necessarily working with very, very early stage, it's a little different. But for the most part, when you're working with startups, a lot of times there are these unrealistic expectations of what to expect from a sales team, from your BD, because a lot of times these founders are very passionate about what they're building and they've spent so much hard work and they're so like passionate about it and they feel like it could just sell itself and so they expect results like overnight. And so for you to be having 4 to 6 clients at a time, rotating that out, I mean that's kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a grind. I mean, the first to give people like a image of how it started, the first 8 months I worked for free, right? Just to show people and my first clients that kind of opened those doors and allowed me to build something for them, I worked completely for free, full time. Luckily, you save up money and you're able to put yourself in that position, but then leverage that for like a part-time paying part-time client, and then one more part-time paying part-time client, and then grew it up to 4, where now I need help, and then grew it up to 6. You lose a couple clients, but you seem to always be able to hover there if you provide a high enough service. The nice part is you're putting yourself on the line, and it is hard with these young startups. It's like what you mentioned always reminds me of the painting. Somebody wants like this beautifully well painted, horse or something, and it comes out as like this stick figure that's like half done of a horse. So it does kind of feel like that at times. But thanks to going through that whole process, now I feel Melcher Capital is at this tipping point where we're able to outreach and go do our own with bigger clients and show, hey, this is what we've done for the last 2 years with our existing clients, and kind of source maybe ones clients that aren't as new, preferably the Cosmos. I'm still a big fan of Cosmos, but yeah, that's I think that's where we're taking things the second half of this year when we bring our new teammates on.
Well, that's really exciting. And to your point, I think delaying your gratification definitely is rewarding. I've heard that before, and I'm a big proponent of that myself in terms of putting in the work early and then it paying off later down the line. Sometimes you don't get that instant gratification, so delaying it certainly is a challenge. But if you can do that, it certainly pays dividends down the road. Sean, where can people learn more about your Military Capital?
Yeah, Twitter. That's where I'm going to be all day, every day, right? So at Melch __. That's me. DMs are always open. Do have a link in my bio there to my website so you can see the three packages and the results that we got our clients. That's going to be the simplest way. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Appreciate you coming on the show, and also all the work that you're doing in the space. A lot of times we talk about building these products, but somebody has to go out and create the partnerships to sell these things and to find a use case for them. And a lot of times that starts with sales. So appreciate all the hard work you're doing in the industry.
yeah, thank you. The Network Spotlight Group has been a tremendous help on this as well. And yeah, thanks for letting me come on here. I could do it all day. I'm truly addicted to finding users for platforms. I really do love it. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sean.